come to YouTube, it'll look like nobody's at home.
Okay.
So we are now live. I think though it's probably going to be closer to 6:45 when we actually get started tonight, because everybody seems to be having one kind of technical difficulty or another. I just got a message from Randy that she's not able to be here tonight. Vanita has all kinds of snow issues going on up there.
Oh yeah, it's snowing here too.
Oh, is it?
Mhm.
And so her internet was out most of the day yesterday, so she's not sure if she's going to be able to get on. I think Joe will be here, but like I said, I just got the notes from him.
Okay.
And I have not heard from Georgette. So I'm gonna close my camera again and go work on these notes a little bit.
You go right ahead.
Just getting them uploaded, and so if anybody comes in, please let them know what's going on. Okay.
I will do that.
Okay. Thanks.
Mhm.
Hey, ladies.
Hey you.
How you doing, Kim?
I'm well. How you doing?
I'm all right. Well, I was better earlier today, and then all of a sudden something hit me. I'm like, oh no, not right now. Wait till after the meeting. Then I can take care of whatever this is.
Michelle says she'll be right back.
Okay.
She's putting the notes up on so that we can see the agenda.
Okay, cool. Well, where is our moderator? Mr. Joel.
He sent Michelle the notes, so he should be on any minute.
Okay.
And she did say that we won't see Randy, and that we may not see.
Vanita.
That's right. She's having some
Oh.
snow issues.
Oh yeah, it's still bad up there. It's crazy.
Yeah. Where are you?
I'm down here in Columbia, South Carolina, and the weather's been going up and down. Yesterday we were in the 70s. Today we were in the 40s with rain. Tomorrow the guy said we'll be in the 80s. I don't think he knows.
Oh,
Okay, it's just I don't know how to dress.
I mean, those are some big changes. Switching 30 degrees.
Yes, this is crazy. I don't know what else what's going to happen. It makes me kind of worried about summer
Oh
because
man.
it can get pretty hot down here.
Wow. Wow. I missed you guys last week.
Yes, we missed you too.
Oh, I missed being here. I went
Um,
to a workshop on black women, the history of black women in New York. And it talked
oh,
about in the 20s, 30s, and 40s what
mhm.
life was like for various black celebrities.
Wow, that sounds really interesting. How did you come across that? Like,
The graduate school at NYU, hello there. Hi, Joel.
Hey, how you
there
doing?
you.
Hey, you. From the graduate school at NYU, they send out bulletins for their speakers. They have a speaker series.
Oh, that's really cool. Oh,
Yeah,
you're gonna have to give us a little presentation about your that information. It's too good to pass up.
I may, but I wanted to just kind of say to Joel, um, Michelle is putting the notes up and she'll be right back in any second.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have some difficulty uploading it.
Can I see your painting? It's a beautiful painting behind you.
Sure.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, you think that's nice? I'm in my I volunteer for a charity. I'm in the office,
Oh,
and we have yeah, uh, yeah, light is hitting off of that one.
yeah. Oh, I love that.
Uh,
That's nice.
Oh, that's nice.
and this is by a famous artist down here. His name is Jonathan Green. He's world renowned black artist. Uh,
Is that a collage with paper or is that paint?
that's paint.
Nice.
His name is Jonathan Green. You can look him up. His paintings cost. He's a nice guy too. His paintings cost more than my house.
Wow.
They do. He's a nice guy, humble guy too. So,
Oh, that's nice.
yeah.
Wow. You don't want to say
So,
that over the internet.
huh?
Oh, well,
Huh?
I said you don't want to give
how much?
prices over the internet.
Oh, that one don't cost that much, but I'm talking about his paintings. They cost a lot
Oh,
of
that was
money.
the print.
Yeah, these are prints. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah, thank you.
That's cool. What was the music one about? What was that one?
Uh, uh, I don't know. It's something that Dr. Bell, somebody put together for him. Somebody gave him an award. I volunteer
Oh.
for this charity that the doctor, the medical doctor, he has all kind of awards and accolades, and people give him all kind of stuff, whether it's musical or whatever. And so they gave him that. It was some kind of thing they did inside a frame with some kind of musical piece in there or something.
Oh.
Wow, that looks very creative.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Hi there.
Hey.
Hey.
The notes are up
Yeah.
in the
I'm glad.
usual places.
I'm
Um,
glad. I'm glad Vanita ain't on. She would have been blaming me on everything, and it was my fault.
well, I do wish we all could do better. I am rushing. We're live, everybody. You know, I said at the beginning maybe we'll get started at 6:45 because everybody's having uh, different issues. Vanita may or may not be here. She's got all the snow going on in Connecticut, and her internet was out most of the day yesterday. So she's going to try to get on. I just got a note from Randy. She's not able to make it tonight. So we are probably it, except that I really was expecting another one of my friends, Dawn. Um, so but I haven't heard from her today, so I don't know if she's having issues getting on. So I think, I think whenever you want to get started, Joel, we should probably go ahead and do it. Um, I didn't get a chance to read the notes at all, so being late just means you don't get the advantage of my special editing skills.
I had it sent to my editor, so.
All right.
You supposed
I don't want to brag, but I'm good. I'm really good.
Oh, I'm not.
Michelle is really good now.
I'm not saying that she ain't, but I'm just saying that, I tried.
I'm sure you did fine. To tell you the truth, Joel, I was half expecting. I must have talked to Vanita around 4 o'clock, just before I took my nap, and she said, "Well, maybe you should give Joel a call and see if he's doing all right, because this was a hard chapter." I said, I'm not going to worry about it. If Joel shows up and says he doesn't have any notes, we're just going to roll with it, because this was a monster of a chapter. It really is. It's long and it's got so much detail. As I'm making the videos, I'm going to produce 6 of the highlight videos out of this chapter. I only have 2 done so far, but the content that I have left is enough to make 4 more videos. So,
wow.
So I just said, if you show up with something good, if you don't, good. So I have to say I'm impressed. We got something.
Okay.
It was one of them kind of chapters that'll make you a little angry, thought provoking, and the whole 9 yards. So,
yeah.
With further ado, I am Joel Jones from Charleston, South Carolina. I'm your moderator for this afternoon. Welcome to the Global Black Feminist Reading Circle. Today is March the 3rd, 2015. Today we will be covering Chapter 5, The Restless Dead, Anatomical Dissection and Display. At this time, we would like to go around the Google Earth here, and would like everyone to introduce themselves. We're gonna start off, and we're gonna go from let's see, from south to north. Ms. Moses.
Oh, that's me. My name is Georgette Moses. I'm participating from Columbia, South Carolina this evening, and I look forward to our usual deep discussions about this chapter and book. Okay.
I don't know who's the furthest north. From Brooklyn. Both of y'all in Brooklyn, or?
Yes.
Okay.
And we just had a new person. I think she's muted though. Came on, Purify Love. Purify, can you hear us? Okay, she may be having some technical issues getting in all the way. Well, since I'm talking, I guess I'll say my name's Michelle Odom. I am in Brooklyn, along with Randy Danielle. I'm one of the co-hosts of the Global Black Feminist Reading Circle. We are in session 3, which runs through June 9th of this year, reading Medical Apartheid, The Dark History of Medical Experimentation on Black Americans, from Colonial Times to the present. You can look for us on Google Plus or YouTube or Facebook to learn more about us, or to join our community on Google Plus to get updated on everything that's happening and find links to get into the conversation. So welcome. and I'm happy to be here. Wasn't sure I was gonna make it tonight, Joelle.
Okay. Uh,
Hi, and I'm Kim, and this is my daughter, Johnny.
Oh,
Hi.
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 She just came in. She's
When are,
my,
when are
my,
you gonna join us?
huh?
When are you gonna join us? We need some fresh faces, some young blood.
Maybe soon. This is our
Okay.
Kim Brandon, and I'm in Brooklyn also. And I guess that's it for me. I'm enjoying reading the book. I don't know if you call it enjoying, but that's
Right.
Hmm.
back to you, Joelle.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna go ahead and go into the summary. Um, Anybody want to read the summary, or would you prefer that I read the summary? I'll read it because it's my words. How about that? Uh,
Okay.
the chapter illustrates the horrors of a medical apartheid. The author, Harriet A. Washington, gives several accounts of the roles of individuals, institutions, and government policies that allow the degradation of African Americans across the country. Reading the excerpt, no place in the United States offers a great opportunities for acquisitions of anatomical knowledge, subjects being obtained from among the colored population in significant numbers for every purpose, and proper dissection carried on without offending any individuals in our community. This was advertisement for the South Carolina Medical College, which is MUSC down here in Charleston. The above advertisement signifies the attitude of society at that particular time. However, as you read through this chapter, the dates are not as distant in the past as one may think. Today, 29 states have what is called presumed consent statutes, which allow the coroner to harvest organs of individuals without prior permission. In 1997, the Los Angeles coroner office was found to have sold more than 500 pairs of coronaries to uh, a year to an eye and tissue office uh, transplant bank. 80% were from blacks and Latinos whose coronaries had fetched a profit of 1,000%. After reading this chapter and book, I have a better understanding why African Americans, the poor and underserved citizens in our community, have distrust for the medical corporation. I also look at every university that has a medical school and wonder what atrocities happen there. And that's what I do now. um, as we go further into the reading, we're going to see that if you got a medical university, you know, around us, or whatever happened and whatever medical advances, it was done with our uh, with our bodies,
Right.
dead or alive.
Right.
Um, any comments? Okay, who wants to be the first to read? A. Casper Yegan.
I can read.
Okay.
Okay.
Was there someone else?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Caspar Yegan. On September 11, 1977, Caspar Yegan, a 68-year-old retired auto mechanic, vanished. His sister, Pearlie Smith, with whom he lived, contacted the Washington, D.C. Missing Person Unit and provided the photograph the police officer requested. He said he would be back, but I didn't hear anything, Smith told the Washington Post. Smith Yegan's niece, Minnie Camp, and other family members made relentless inquiries to the police at the 5th District Station House for more than a month. They also called the area hospital emergency departments, which the officers should have done. Everyone they spoke to assured them that Yegan had never been brought into a hospital. Camp called the police again on November 1st, 1977, and reached the officer with whom Smith had first spoken. He visited them again and made several calls which revealed that his original report had never been properly filed. The police made other errors as well. The officer had never personally checked emergency rooms, and the missing persons units had never followed procedures by checking Yegan's description against the list of recently deceased identified patients. When the police finally did this, they found Yegan's body on a slab in the autopsy laboratory of Howard University Medical School, where he was on the verge of being dissected by students. 1. How often do the bodies of the poor, the homeless, the friendless, or those who, like Yegan, simply look that way to medical personnel, end up on an autopsy table?
Well, anybody want to take a stab at that? Many. Many,
Yeah.
as we will find out.
Yeah. And as you said, Joel, just reading this stuff um, enlightens us on things that have been going on all along and all around us and are still going on. That you have, I think most of us probably have no idea about. Um, who thinks about um, uh, uh, where hospitals and scientific research labs get their bodies from. So you're right. The answer is many.
Hmm. No, I'm thinking when I was reading this, I immediately thought about that young man. I don't remember if it was Alabama or Georgia or what, was the teenager they found rolled up in the exercise mats in the gym.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Georgia.
And they claimed that he was, he went in there to get his sneakers. However, his sneakers were found on top of, he was upside down and the sneakers were on top of his feet. So that lie didn't work
Mhm,
out.
mhm,
And then
mhm,
later, they found out some camera footage, security footage of one of the star football players might be involved, but he's related to somebody in, I want to say, like the government, FBI, CIA, something, one of those alphabet agencies, and so they're kind of like giving it a pass. But what was interesting was the parents kept posting on their website, for seeking justice. Well, they didn't get his body. They didn't couldn't get to his body, and then his organs were missing.
Oh.
And that's not the first incidents that I've heard of this. These young
mhm,
people, so there's some kind of altercation with the police or someone else, and then that they take them in as a John Doe. The coroner, we already know the coroners in most of these states don't have a formal education if they're elected into these offices, so you don't know who's handling what and for what reason. And body
mhm.
parts are a lucrative business. So, and reading this made me say, oh, okay, it's been going on for a long time. This association from the humanity of the person because they need this resource.
Right.
And that's us.
Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah. The second question, what role has race played in such events in the past and today?
One of the comments in the chapter is that where what's that? Where's my bag? It's one of the comments in the chapter is about, well, white people realized at some point that they couldn't stop this activity, and so they started passing laws that would make it easier to get black and poor bodies. Um, so race has been a big factor, and um, the white there's a comment about whites didn't like it and blacks didn't have the power to stop it, something like that. Um, and even where whites sometimes objected, like there's a story about something that happened in New York, um, where the Quakers were objecting, and but there were very few whites that were objecting to the theft of black bodies. But when they started going into white cemeteries,
Exactly.
then there was a problem, and there was a riot because you know that's unacceptable. So because of our position, um, oh, here's the quote at the beginning of the chapter. In Baltimore, the bodies of colored people exclusively are taken for dissection because the whites do not like it and the colored people cannot resist. So, because of our position, you know, being enslaved and all the rest, um, this is a part of our story.
And it's interesting that I think that happened somewhere in New York when they went in that we were talking about. About 5,000 people came in and destroyed the university's property and the whole 9 yards.
Beat
Is
up the doctors.
beat up the doctors and things like that. I think with the whole stigma of making minorities and African Americans, sell it to the to other white folk like they're not human, and then if they're not human, they don't have a soul, and so they don't have any rights, and so therefore it makes them easier to do all these atrocities to those to African Americans.
Right? But they've also been clear, at least since the Middle Passage, um, how black people felt about their bodies after death. One of the comments she makes is that the people that ran the slave ships knew that they
Yes.
could control the captives and keep them in fear from uprising because the captives were so afraid of being dismembered. So they would dismember somebody in front of the other captives so that they would know this would be you, because with our African spirituality we were it's just in us to be concerned about what happens to us after death.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the third question I asked is, what is the name of the hospital in your town with documented folklore or I spelled that wrong. Wise tales about horrors such as Mr. Yegan.
Mm.
Are you a homegrown New Yorker, Kim?
I'm from Baltimore.
No.
Okay.
Got out just in the nick of time.
Actually, they had a story about a Baltimore place in here, if I can remember. There's so much stuff in
They
here.
sure did. There's always a Baltimore story. This is
Yeah,
Baltimore.
Yeah. You know,
actually, yeah.
I don't know really because I'm not from any place really. I have lived all over the country, grown up moving across the country. Um, but there are a couple of stories in this chapter about Columbia University and New York University,
Yes.
both held in such high esteem. Um, that I mean it's almost comical to think of these doctors, as you were saying last week, Georgette, they build up this reputation, this image of being so honorable.
Mhm.
And, to picture them crawling around in the night,
Yeah.
at graveyards, or paying people off to do that work. It gives me some kind of cognitive dissonance.
Yeah. It's like some horror movie you'd see on Saturday afternoon. But
Yeah,
this is the real stuff.
But
yeah,
but from my reading and just online and stuff like that, anywhere you had a minority population or wherever you have a medical school, this went on.
yeah,
Whatever medical school that you can name, all of them are guilty of it. Okay,
yeah,
if they
Yeah.
go back to, well, as we read further, you'll see that this comes all the way up. Matter of fact, just the other day, and I went and looked online, a friend of mine made me aware that there were sterilization cases settled in Virginia and North Carolina and all over the nation, include about 75,000 people that they sterilize, and now they're trying to pay about $53,000 a piece for sterilization.
wow, yeah,
Just new stuff, and then, but there's so many cases that's in just in this one chapter that I can only pull out a couple.
yeah.
It's funny.
So go ahead.
Before you move on, Joel, I just wanted to say we had moved into a house in East New York, and it was a doctor's office. And up in the closet, it had a fake closet, and up above there, it was these jars of fetuses.
Oh,
So
Oh.
it was, and because we were rambunctious kids, we climbed up there and we found them. And so I still remember being that young and finding these jars with babies in them.
Oh.
And
Wow.
this was here in Brooklyn. That had to be in the late '60s.
I
And so
wonder
I
what
guess he
doctor that
moved.
was.
Yeah, he moved out and left his babies up in there. So,
That's not
mm,
oh,
good.
Wow.
Lord have mercy. It's just that you want this level of trust with medical professionals,
Mm.
and you just don't know.
right, right.
I think the more I read this book, the very less I trust any of the medical profession, to tell you the truth. you know.
Yeah, that's why I was telling y'all last week. I hear her saying throughout the book that
Yeah, I saw
things have
that.
gotten better.
I saw that. Matter of fact, I read a passage that she said, "Well, I am no way saying that they were murdered or anything like that." It's almost like a disclaimer. You understand what I'm
Yes,
saying? Like,
She didn't
I
want to
can
get
see the
sued.
I can see
yes.
I can see the page winking. Okay, wink, wink.
Right, right. Like in this chapter, she talks about um, as to your question about what role does race play,
Mm.
in current day, she talks about the supposedly the laws now protect us so that we don't have the kind of racial disparity that was going on in the early history, but there are no federal statistics
No,
that
Mm,
gathered to prove that.
no.
Which made
yeah.
me think about like the number of police killings, black people caught by police. Well, if no federal agency is gathering the numbers, we don't know.
We don't know.
Yep. It'll be whatever they say it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
But mm. So who wants to read B, Medical College of
Um,
Georgia?
okay, I'll read B. Construction, the whole thing, or just to the first question number 4.
Um, yeah, just to the yeah, to that, yes.
Okay. Oh, okay. Construction workers renovating a stately 150-year-old Greek Revival structure that once housed the Medical College of Georgia, MCG, stumbled upon a nightmare hidden between the buildings. Scattered beneath its concrete floors lay a chaos of desiccated body parts and nearly 10,000 human bones and skulls, many bearing the marks of 19th century anatomy tools or numbered with India ink. The basement was filled with mostly black bodies, not by accident, but by design. As the 19th century progressed, doctors' needs for cadavers for medical education and training increased. But dissection was abhorrent, a shameful fate reserved for the most heinous criminals, who received a double sentence of execution and dissection. As a result, physicians appropriated the bodies of enslaved persons with no legal rights, or those of free blacks with no rights that a white man was obliged to respect. The bodies in the basement had been spirited by night from the graveyard, but not from just any graveyard. Most were taken from Cedar Grove Cemetery, an African American burial ground. We know this for several reasons. Physiological, anthropological, and nutritional assessments of the bones and other remains established that 3/4 of them came from blacks, and Cedar Grove had held black bodies exclusively since the Civil War. Since its founding, black Augusta residents had constantly complained of grave robbing there. In 1852, the Medical College of Georgia brought the 36-year-old Grandison Harris, a strapping, muscular native of the Gullah Islands, on a South Carolina slave auction block for $700. The school had not purchased a strong man just to clean the floors. His chief duty was to rob graves. MCG faculty taught Harris to read, which enabled him to glean details of death and the dates of funeral services from the obituaries. He would return after nightfall to pull bodies from the fresh graves with his powerful arms. After the Civil War, the former slave became a Reconstruction judge in South Carolina. But when African Americans lost their newfound political power, the MCG offered Harris his old job at $6 a month. He was known as the Resurrection Man. And question number 4 is, what are some professions today African Americans and other minorities perform that in the future would be viewed by others in our community with disdain, like Mr. Harris?
Ooh, great question.
Hmm.
Wow.
Hmm.
Um,
Disdain.
with a
Go
drug
ahead.
dealer. comes to
Mm,
mind.
okay.
Um, but I guess I'm one that feels like we're all implicated in this system that we all help to perpetuate. Um, in this, I'm watching Netanyahu on TV today, and I guess I won't go down that road.
Okay.
But
Well, I went down that road, so you'll see at the end.
no, but I mean, there are certainly many positions that are honorable in and of themselves. Um, but like Benita and I are working on setting up a nonprofit, Reading for Change. Nonprofits are generally funded by um, private foundations, private corporations, who get their money, who knows where. And so there are a lot of, not a lot, but there are some black people that feel like, well, um, you shouldn't be going to the white man for money. But from my perspective, in one way or another, we're all going to the white man for money. Even my father was a black preacher, and we have this image of the black church as being um, an independent agency. It gets its money from black people, but where do those black people get their money from?
Yeah.
It's all one big circle. We think of a barber as being an independent person, but the people that come in to get their hair cut, where did they get their money from? And so, I think we're all caught up in it, which is why it's so difficult to get out of it. But we can certainly look at some people with a level of disdain, like I just don't know how you do it. Like I just don't know how you work for a private prison industry. Yeah, we can do that, but I think the reality is that we're all caught up.
True. When I wrote that question, I looked at when you read about the judge. Everybody feared this person because they knew exactly what he did. He robbed the graves. And it was amazing. They had this. You know, that even at death, that our people couldn't even stay in the ground, and they had certain ways that they said put straw on the top of them, layered it like that, and that's a way to keep them from, they
Oh,
said it might.
excuse me, let me interrupt you. Does somebody have the radio on in the background?
Yeah, hold on a second, Joel, turn that off.
Okay,
Just
thank you,
unplug it. Okay, that's good. Oh, I didn't know if y'all could hear. I'm sorry.
thank you.
And um, I lost my thought there.
Oh,
Man,
you're talking about how they layered
yeah, how
the
they
the
layered the graves. Yeah, thank you, with straw. And when they layered it with straw, they was able to, to keep the grave robbers from coming along. When I thought about this particular question, I looked at, when you mentioned the black church. I mean, when you looked at talking about the church, and I think about, the other thing that you said, well, no matter what you do, we all complicit for the, within the system in itself. Somebody told me one time you can put a dollar bill in a church plate and it can be used for evil. No matter what you do or whatever position it is. But I think
Yeah.
one of those that came to my mind is where we really fallen off the wagon at is how we use our institution as a church. How there's so many, and it's just not a few. There's so many uh, preachers out there and an organization that sheeple us into a system and don't and use it for evil. you know.
Absolutely.
You know. But go ahead. Okay.
Good point.
Kim,
Yes.
your thoughts?
I guess I'm looking at the coroner's office that when you stop and think, where are we still complicit? Where are we still not communicating that this is an issue? So if this is still going on, especially if they're saying that if African American young men and Hispanic young men, if they are having this gun violence and their organs are missing, or somebody knows something and is not bringing it to the community to kind of say this is still happening. And that's the thing that I find amazing. I found this whole chapter to be a wake-up call. Like, I was shocked by a lot of this. The other chapters didn't shock me the way this one has.
This is a shocker.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
when we got to New York and we got to Columbia, it was just like I wasn't in Kansas anymore. I just felt like, what?
Yeah.
Columbia, New York?
Yes.
Seriously? And so all of a sudden you have to, then we start talking about recent history. That was even harder. So I just think that there are some people of color who are aware of what's going on, and they may be paid very well for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just to be quiet, just to shut up.
Mm-hmm.
So let me see, Michelle, do you want to read the second part of that?
Okay.
Thank you.
The North shared the South's dependence upon black bodies. Medical historian David Humphrey records the widespread belief that by 1788, few blacks were permitted to remain in the grave.
Oh.
As in the South, Northern hospitals expected blacks to submit to research, including autopsy and dissection, as payment for having been treated in charity wards, and all blacks were consigned to such wards. Northern schools also relied upon clandestine exports of black bodies from the South, which were only briefly interrupted by the Civil War. An industry sprang up in shipping black bodies to Northern medical colleges. Dr. F.C. Waite recalled that many bodies of Southern Negroes were used in Northern medical colleges. A professor of anatomy in a New England medical school told me he had an arrangement under which he received in each session a shipment of 12 bodies of Southern Negroes. They came in barrels, marked turpentine. Black graveyards were favored hunting grounds of Northern body snatchers. In 1829, John D. Godman, M.D., wrote of how, on behalf of several Philadelphia medical schools, he has secretly paid the manager of a public graveyard for the privilege of emptying the pit of about 5,285 cadavers a month.
Wow.
During each dissecting season. The reference to a dissection season was pragmatic as well as academic. Before the advance of efficient preservative technology, corpse decay quickly, except for those corpses that are pickled in whiskey for export. Bodies were exhumed during the cool of the academic year, from fall through spring. Todd Sabat explains that blacks were well aware of this morbid seasonality, as evinced by one elderly Virginia slave who, passing the medical school, shuddered and said, "Please, God, I hope when I die, it will be in the summertime."
Okay, first of all, thank you. That was a mixed print. That's 50 to 85 cadavers. My bad.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Well,
the
we
question.
needed you to edit that, but you wasn't available. But go ahead.
so, so the question is, why did white physicians and administrators distance themselves from the collecting of cadavers and specimens? Well, it was illegal.
Yeah.
It was a crime. And so they didn't want to be caught. They didn't want to be punished. Not that any of them ever were, from what
Right.
I could see. Um, but yeah, they didn't want to be caught with the goods in their hand.
And the ones that ended up or were caught, you know, or affiliated with them, they ended up getting the lowest person on the totem pole. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
They end up getting the people like Harris. They end up going to jail. The doctors, white doctors, never did go to jail. Kind of like the drug dealer that stand on the street,
Hmm.
but the bankers never go to jail.
Yeah.
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 uh,
Mm.
Ms. Moses, you awfully quiet there.
Oh, all of this whole chapter makes me think of this series that I watch off and on Cinemax. It's called The Nick, and it's
Oh,
about turn of the century medicine or medical doctors in New York. And at first, before I started reading this book, I didn't understand. I thought it was really just a dramatization. Really, you got
Fiction.
this very fiction. This arrogant doctor and his staff, and they're doing the surgical theater, and they're experimenting on these patients without anesthesia or washing their hands. And you have a hospital administrator who's making back deals using the money that the benefactors are giving him for everything else, to give his wife the high life. He owes the local gangsters. He's trying to get cadavers for the medical students. Meanwhile, the ambulance drivers for the two hospitals in the city are racing to, wherever there's an accident or people are sick, and they're threatening each other to get the bodies because they get paid per body. So as
Hmm.
I'm reading this book, I'm thinking, okay, probably a lot of that stuff is not just just fiction. So and it's
Right.
just, just so incredible because now I can really watching that series, I can visualize, these folks that Washington is writing about doing the things they're doing. And it's just really, and I know the series is not even touching the truth because most of their victims they're showing, they're poor white people, and and they showed the one black doctor they actually allowed to, well, they were forced to let him into the hospital, but he couldn't touch the patients. He had to treat the black patients in the cellar. So,
Mm.
even with this series, it's trying to, reveal the truth. It can't tell everything because if it was, it would have shown the people they were working on would have been the black people, the black bodies, on the
Right.
table.
Right.
So,
wow.
Yeah, that reminds me, as I'm working on the videos, and collecting images, it was pretty hard to find images that that reflected this content. You know, images, like you can find a lot of images of white bodies on a slab,
Hmm.
but not a lot of black bodies on a slab. So,
And that's very telling. Who's
yeah.
controlling the information? There's stuff they don't want to get out
Yeah.
because
Well, it's kind of like when you want to talk about history, and because that's all we're talking about, the history, the bad history of this country, and there's good history, but there's bad history. And Oklahoma deciding that, is AP history course, they are only going to have readings of Ronald Reagan speeches and the Ten Commandments for in history, because history, the history that was being told and through true academia, put America in a bad light. So this is their this is what they
Mhm.
intend to do. So the
Mhm.
same thing with them literally whitewashing history with the cadabras on the table is that they're not ready and don't want to face the horrors of the truth and the
Right.
mm,
history that is actually ours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'll read see Watching the Bones. Anybody got anything else on that? I'm sorry.
It's good.
You good?
nope.
For many, the final manifestation of medical racism is the post-mortem display of African American bodies without their consent, stuffed, mummified, or skeleton black bodies have been displayed in doctor's office, anatomy laboratory, museum, traveling sideshows, and even private businesses. Some libraries and physicians still possess books bound in the skins of African Americans, souvenirs that were typically bought from grave robbers. Even in death, African Americans were bought and sold. They put my mother on display like a monkey in a zoo, complained the retired Brooklyn teacher Frances Oglesby in 2001 as she announced her suit against the Medical College of Georgia for the returns of her mother's remains and $800,000 in damages for pain and suffering. All that remains of Mrs. Betsy Wilborn is a skeleton that hung on display for half a century in the pathology laboratory of, of the same school that hid African American bones in the basement. However, Miss Wilborn, a poor, frail African American woman who lived in Lincoln County, 60 miles northwest of Augusta, was consigned not to obscurity but in display as an object of horrible wonder. Why? Why? She suffered from Paget's disease, a bone disorder that deformed her skeleton so monstrously that she died of the ailment in 1950 at the age of 28. Augusta surgeon Peter B. Wright fully explored Wilborn's crippling bone deformities when he performed her autopsy, which he vividly described in the 1951 Journal of Bone and Joint Surgery article. Wright, Wright then removed the flesh from her body and reconstructed her skeleton, which he displayed at that year's winter meeting of the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons in New York City. He, her bizarrely arresting bony cage won Wright a Medal of Originality. Wilborn's family thought she had been buried. After this family sued, the MCG eventually agreed to return Wilborn's remains and pay for her burial. However, Ogilvy's lawyer advised that this would destroy evidence central to her suit, so she refused. A Georgia Court of Appeal ruled against the family in 2004, noting that the school had been immune from lawsuits when her mother died and that she waited too long to sue. Wilborn's skeleton still hangs in the MCG, jealously guarded from all but MCG eyes.
Mm.
Well, question 6. Should Wilborn's family have taken, I'm going to read all of them, then we can just jump through. Wilborn's family, should the Wilborn family have taken the school first offer? 7. What do you think about the court's ruling? 8. How do you think schools are getting their cadavers today? 9. Should African Americans fear hospitals? 10. Would you donate your body to science? 11. How would you bury your loved ones today?
I guess for me, she doesn't have any guarantee that if she took the first offer that the body would be in the grave, that the bones would be in the grave. So I just don't think there's any trust there. So I just don't see that being a solution to have somebody who has just been so incredibly disrespectful and to your people. You're gonna let them bury your people? And then the other question that comes to mind for me is, would I donate my body for science? And the answer is no. The other thing that comes to mind, having read this chapter, I just always felt that I'd be cremated, and now I don't know if if what's in the box. I don't know if.
You're right. You're right. You might be thinking you're right.
I don't know if, when African Americans are saying that they want cremation and somebody digs up some ash. I don't know what that is. So that would be a perfect opportunity to just get lots and lots of bodies, is to go to crematoriums.
Yeah.
Well, they have them down in Georgia. It was a black funeral home. They just stacked. They supposed to been cremating people. That was years ago, and they were just stacking the bodies in the back. They wouldn't even burn them. Yeah.
Yeah, they ran out of chemicals, so they were just tossing them back there.
That happened. That happened before the turn of the century. Before 2000. I mean, that's crazy. Anyway. Anybody else? Georgette, Michelle?
Oh, well, I used to have on your driver's license, would you be an organ donor? But I've since changed it because after doing some research about the big organ organ stealing business, I don't want to be that that person that all the EMT had to do was one more thing to save my life, but because he's got a side deal, for a fresh heart and a couple of kidneys. He's like, beep, no, she didn't take it, I'm sorry. Come to the hospital where you can pick up this.
Well, I got a heart for you that's still beating.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and think about it, you might be hearing all that. Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
That's scary stuff.
But hey, we laughing, but who knows what happened on Highway 52? You know what I mean? One thing, you might be alive now, but you might not. You ain't gonna be alive to tell that story.
Right.
They're gonna make sure of that. But there's so much in this, in this whole thing. What kind of stuck out to me was the coroners in 29 states can just harvest you without consent. It kind of like makes me, you see all these missing people, and one thing about it is, I always tell people this, you know, one thing about capitalism in its purest form, it is completely evil. It doesn't
Mm,
care about race. So when you see
that's
that there are 700,000 people that go missing in this country every year,
Mhm.
700,000. A lot of people say, "Oh, it's and it is. It's probably the sex trade." But you have all these teenagers and people, and hey, for the most part, the medical university, they want healthy organs. They don't want no sense in getting a liver for some alcoholic. It might not be that good anyway. So they need young bodies. So when you think about what they used to do with us, they're probably doing it to each other now. You know what I mean? They're 700,000 people. They just vanish off the face of the earth. Through this
Yeah.
country.
Yeah. I too imagined that most of them ended up in the sex trade. Um, I certainly didn't think you had to be worrying about the medical industry, um, snatching bodies off the street. But I don't know. I don't know. Even today, I don't know. Um, I, I think we have to really, really, who was it? Kim said this is a wake up call. I think we have to really, really keep our eyes open, um, because, it's like this notion of presumed consent, um, which basically I think means if no one is there to claim your body or
Yes.
to pay for the expenses of disposing of you, then that gives the state the right, um, to do with your body whatever you want, whatever they want to do. Now, just to be pragmatic for a minute, um, they have to do something. If no one comes to claim your body, they have to do something with the body. Um, but you just don't know how much. It's like the organ donor card. I feel like they're playing games with our head. Like they give us these laws, they give us these tools that make you think that you have some rights, that you can opt in or you can opt out. um, but is anybody really paying attention to any of that? Like, I'm thinking about the story that they opened the chapter with, um, about the man, was it Yigan,
yeah.
um, who went missing, and he had the phone number to a relative
Hmm.
in his pocket. He ended up in the hospital. The family called the police. The family called the local hospitals. The family did everything that they could have done.
Right.
But the police bungled it from one end to the next. And then even the hospitals, you call the hospital and you describe a man, 50-year-old black man, whatever, and he's laying in, in your morgue, and you said no, we ain't got nobody like that.
That's crazy.
So it just feels like even if you have properly, oh, Joe, we lost Joe. Oh no.
Uh-oh.
It feels like even if you've gone through all of the proper steps to plan, um, I don't know what we can really feel secure about. Very frightening stuff.
I think what I also find frightening is that, I've lost two loved ones in the last 4 years, and at no point did we ask, once they got from the hospital to the undertaker, did they have all of their body parts in there?
Right.
Yes,
So even
'cause
though you have the body, you don't know what's missing because you're grieving and you don't think to ask. So there was one example in the chapter where they said somebody's stomach had been taken.
Right.
So you just don't know, and you don't even know to ask
Right.
how
And
many of that
they
person
probably
is
say,
there.
well, she didn't ask, so we presume we had the right to take her stomach.
yes.
Yeah, that was a. I got kicked offline. That was a presumed consent. Like there's nobody around, so the coroner can say, well, we presume that they want to donate their bodies.
Yeah.
And that was the law. You
Yeah.
know,
That
and
is
and
the
that's
law.
the law. Yeah, in 29 states.
Yeah.
In 29 states.
And like she pointed out, they don't do any marketing around, here's how you can opt out.
Mm-mm.
We hear all the time about here's how you can donate your organs. And the other thing that pisses me off is that all these organs are coming from black people, but when black
Well,
people need an
there
organ,
you go.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that the truth? They're always
we,
advertising. There are more black people to be donors, but we're
but
probably already donors, right?
yeah, we're probably already donors, and we're at the absolute bottom of the list for getting an organ if we need one. So it's
Yeah.
just,
And the thing about it is, does it matter what race you are anyway from the organ? So what difference does it make?
yeah,
Yeah.
Whether you got a heart from a black person or a white person or whatever. You know.
yeah. And Kim's point about they're always talking about how inferior we are and how less than human we are. But so with this, so if we're so subhuman, then why are you taking our body parts to put in yours?
That's right.
Mm,
And
wow.
I have to think on that line, the propaganda of advertising about, we need to donate, you save a life, give your organs after death, kind of makes you think, oh, everything is just a benevolent, institution, and
Yes,
we're doing good things, and
yes,
still underneath, there's this undercurrent of profit for organs and education and training for organs or whatever else they're doing. But
yeah,
by this time, you would think they would know all they need to know about what your heart and your liver and kidney are doing.
yeah,
But and then I wanted to say something about the courts role in this. When the few people who do stumble across, something that's gone awry, and they take it to sue, do we hear about the successful cases, or do they just, they filter the information out, so we only hear about those cases? Well, they didn't win because of this and such, and then that might discourage other people from putting forth a case or even going to investigate what happened, to their loved one.
right.
So we still have this built up distrust not only of the medical system but of the judicial system on top of that. Who is there to champion our cause? It's just a decent human right. From birth to death, and something's gone wrong, and I need some restitution.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
it was just like my partner. He told me about the sterilization in Virginia where they are that stopped in 1979. Okay, and where they're going back and make restitution of $50,000 per person. But yet you didn't stop generations of people. So you didn't price tag on my pursuit of happiness.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So is that so when a person that want to commit genocide, if you have a court that has a deterrent of $50,000 to an entire institution, and you say $50,000, but yet I get rid of these pests that I think they are for $50,000 a person and keep them from having children and generations of them, I would think that that is a price that a racist person would say, I want to pay.
Right.
So where's the deterrence or something like that? There is not. So
Right.
what is a black body worth?
Do Black Lives Matter?
Exactly. So there was a lot of things that in this chapter that I didn't put in, but
Did you put in the piece about Addie Mae Collins?
yeah, oh yeah, I wanted to. I didn't put that in, but I thought somebody would talk about it. The civil rights baby that got slain and they took her body out of the grave, or one of the 4 children,
Yeah.
in the that got blew up in the Alabama church.
Yeah.
And they came back later on, and somebody had dug the child up. She's not there.
Yeah. That was.
I didn't put that in because I thought it'd be too much for you. That's why.
Well, it really, it really was. Yeah.
Once you get into the
Sorry,
chapter,
I had to whitewash this a little bit, okay?
Yeah.
That was horrible. I mean, just took. Just a savage just took that little baby out of there.
Mm.
So, go ahead,
I have
Kim.
a question. I guess I'm just wondering, what is our responsibility to each other as African Americans? If it just seems like if you know that you want to die in the summertime and you're saving all of this money to pay the insurance just to put, grandpa in the ground, and you know that he's not going to stay there. You got him in his best suit, and you got him with his wedding ring on, and you put him in the ground. Somebody knows that he's not going to stay there. You know what I'm saying? The odds of him, I'm talking about, further years back. But it just seemed like there's got to be a responsibility from if Black Lives Matter, that we are now responsible for each other to kind of say, somehow we got to put together 8 cents and get Bobo and them to watch the graves at night.
Yeah.
I just think that at some point, what is it that we're responsible for changing as opposed to waiting for another system to change for us?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the most horrific thing I've ever read. I'm sitting there feeling like I need a bath, a shower, or something.
Yeah.
And unless we
watch
do
a
something,
cartoon
it will
or something.
continue. I'm sorry?
Watch a cartoon. That's what I always say. When you
I
read
may have
something
to
like
watch something tonight, but
you have to watch a cartoon. That's what I always say when I watch something as dark as this. And I'm like Kim. I don't think I've ever read anything is quite as dark, and to think that it happened for hundreds of years,
Yeah.
maybe a couple of hundred, but they don't even freaking know. But
I do have to say to you all that I think that bar none, this is the hardest chapter in the book, and that if you made it through this one, you will make it through the rest of the book. This is just as ugly as it gets.
Michelle, I think you need a therapist standing by.
Absolutely.
I'm a disabled veteran, and most of that is not physical, so I have a therapist.
Yeah, but no, I wish that a therapist would join our group.
Yeah.
because we need one for this stuff.
Yeah.
But
But I talked to, I work for a charity, or volunteer for a charity called Closing the Gap in Healthcare. And like I told y'all before, the medical doctor in which runs the charity, he said that he had first started his charity, and then, but what gave him the drive to make this an outstanding charity that it is that he read this book. And he was very surprised when I read this book. He's like, and he liked the way that we were doing it, very scholarly, but he said that gave him the drive because he said that this book in itself gave him he said because he said that we have suffered so many atrocities by the medical system and in this country. He said that the name of the charity is called Closing the Gap in Healthcare, and he said the disparities that we have for closing the gap in healthcare, he said it's actually in our DNA. He said it's actually in our DNA now.
yeah,
And he said that without even telling each other, without us even really knowing, he said that's the disparities that we go through, not going to the doctor or having fear of the doctor, not trusting the medical system at all. He said this is part of it. All of this. All of this.
yeah. In terms of Kim's point about our responsibility to each other, I this chapter made me think about, well, to your point, I would say there's a whole lot of stuff we need to take responsibility for, including that. And this wasn't even, I think this hasn't even been on anybody's radar, because who thinks about your family members being dug up once you put them in the grave? And I think about all the little old ladies that have struggled to save money for funerals and all the expense that we go to for funerals. You're just not even thinking that they're not going to stay in the grave. There's a marker for the 4 little girls that I'm going to put in one of the videos that starts out saying something like, "Here is the final resting place," for the 4 little girls. Well, we think when we put somebody in the grave, they are at rest. And that's what allows us to start to be at rest and have peace. I don't even think anybody's thinking that there's a problem or a need to be met, because we're thinking when we put our people in the grave, that's where they stay, that's where they rest. So first we have to understand that that this is something we should be, one more thing that we should be concerned about.
Georgette?
Yes. Oh no, I'm just agreeing with Michelle there, because we don't pay attention to things until there's a problem, and then often we're with it for those first 15 minutes of it, and then if it hasn't affected us directly, we're not going to invest anything else into the acknowledgement and rectifying this issue. We're like, okay, well, that's their problem over there in that state or that city, or that family. Not understanding this could happen to anybody and everybody. Probably is happening to everyone. That's why, they constructed those mausoleums with those iron bars on them to protect their loved ones. But
And
that,
but
but who was watching?
even the white folks were saying, that they don't even feel safe with all of the mort safes and the vaults
Right,
and all of that
right. Because who
because
was
they
watching the body on the way to the mortuary,
Yeah.
right?
But the other thing I wanted to say to that same issue about responsibility is like this story around Grandison Harrison, who was a black man, late 1800s, early 1900s, um, who was a slave, and we already talked about it, but he was a slave. And he was bought by the medical school, and he was assigned the job of robbing graves from the black cemetery. Um, and that's what I mean by we're all caught up in this system. Because as long as we're all saying that, well, I got to do what I got to do to survive,
Yeah.
then we can't ever challenge um, things we know in our bones are wrong. I think it was the week that we talked about the circuses and whatnot, when Randy was moderating, and I think one of her questions that we didn't get to on something was, what would you have done differently? Or what do you imagine you could have done in that situation? And I think that's the conundrum. What would we have done if we had been Grandison Harrison?
Yeah.
Hmm. Not a lot of choices as a slave. He'd probably have ended up on one of those autopsy tables.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Somebody ripping. Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
Okay. In closing, I rarely make comparison between tragedies that befall different peoples. However, I cannot help but think of all the atrocities that we as a people have suffered in this country. When you talk about uh, slavery, you have to realize that it is just one aspect of suffering endured by the African American people in this country. The entire spin-off of slavery, of the slavery institution, gave privileged whites the ability to do with us what they chose. There were crimes committed, people were murdered, women were raped, and no one paid for the crimes. During World War II, the Nazis had 4 years to experiment with people of Jewish descent. In the American Nazi system, this went on for well over a century. How can we as a country begin to heal if we don't even want to tell the story? Do you think there is a difference between the Nazi death camps and the American medical apartheid? Would you consider one system more humane than the other? Why or why not? Should American medical universities be taken to the United Nations for crimes against humanity? Anybody? I know I went there, but hey.
Yes, you did.
You did. Yes, you did. Excellent. Um, I don't know. I mean, I think that abuse is abuse, and that it's not a good idea to get into comparing suffering. Um, I think that a number of people. I know that a number of people have received reparations for different things that have happened to their ethnic group or whatever. And that reparations is an issue that we ought to be taking very seriously. It's been around, the idea has been around for a long time, and there are a few people that have championed it mightily. But it's something that, an idea that really needs to become widespread, and fought for tooth and nail to the death, because we deserve it. And if we can look at other people that have been wronged and see them, you're talking about the Nazis the Jews who experienced such horrific things. But just the Japanese who were interned here in the United States during WW2, they got reparations. And from what I can hear, they didn't go through half of what blacks or Jews have been through. And so we deserve reparations. We need reparations. And the medical abuses are just one aspect. That's the other thing. That's just one aspect of why we are due. And so, America can't ever really move to a peaceful place or a sane place until it begins to grapple with these ugly truths that come out of our past, but extend in a large way to our present. So, I don't know how we're going to get about the healing, Joelle, but I know that until we do, we are trapped in these vicious cycles, that that keep people in fear. The fear leads to the whole need for security and policing and all of this expense that we have to go through because we're trying to maintain this psychological barrier between the truth, and what we believe. When we start to look at the truth, it will change what we know as well as what we believe.
Kim?
I like the last question in terms of, the UN and crimes against humanity. I think that unless there's a consequence, it will happen again. And I feel now that we're starting in our own Holocaust right now. It really feels like I went to a workshop on Saturday, and they talked about how black wealth has dropped so low. Black wealth has dropped so low that on average, an African American has about $4,900 worth of wealth. So if you take the richest black African American and the poorest, and you level it all out, it comes to about $5,000. And then if you look at other races, especially Europeans, whites, all of that, and it comes to over $100,000 per person, and that number, the 5,000 for us, is going down. So I think that there's so many ways that people are looking at how to squeeze the margins out of us squeeze, 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 and I don't know if we'll be able to climb back out.
Right.
And so I think that there needs to be some consequence for some of what has happened. And I strongly, strongly feel that we have to start to put the onus, the solutions on ourselves. To say, okay, well, how do we then keep our own wealth? And why don't we make this a scorecard so that next year black wealth will be at 6,000, and then the following year 10,000. It's for me. It's just got to be something where we take all of this information and say, how do we come together as a group and change this? Because you can't wait for other people to change it. Like the last book we were reading, we're the people we've been waiting for.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I love this particular group right here, because I'm just learning and talking about things that I've just never thought about.
Mm-hmm.
Georgette?
Wow. Kim and Michelle said so much stuff that got me thinking. So I'm going to start with the Nazi death camp thing and the reparations. And I first heard about, the Nazi death camps. And then I discovered a documentary about what the Koreans did to their Chinese prisoners, which was very similar to what the Nazis did. And then I learned that the Americans used information from both of those people, those scientists, here in America, still using that information.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to think it's some sort of mentality where you have complete control over people. You don't want to release it. You'll give them some little small tokens like the president was able to give reparations to the Japanese, and then to I believe the American Indians, he gave them something. But there was so much that's been done to us. Nobody wants to talk about it. And when they do, it's just cursory, just there's a couple of blurbs in a rewritten history book, and you shouldn't talk about it. And then they'll bring up somebody, some old guy who was born on the plantation to say, "Oh, it was good," but it wasn't. And then nothing after that was good either. And so, and on Michelle's point, I would like to know what those Japanese people did, whoever it was that spearheaded that movement to get them their reparations. And then those, Native Americans, I don't want to call them American Indians, Native Americans, what did they do? And we
Right.
need, our people who are trying to get that, movement going, to connect with those guys and see, what did you do that worked?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times online I see different groups and they're talking about reparations for us, and then there's always a linkage. There's always a negative linkage from the black nationalists, and I don't know if these are trolls or whatever, but they try to turn it into something negative. When why don't we deserve something for this? No one's trying. If you don't want to accept any blame because you don't feel you were responsible, fine, but we deserve some acknowledgement of what was done, and I don't know if we'll ever get that if they keep dividing us, between those people who are on the extremes of each side, and then we don't get to that point where, okay, this is good for everybody, we can meet together, on these terms and get something. It doesn't have to be, billions of dollars, although we know it is, because there are a bunch of rich families right now still reaping the rewards of all of that. But just the acknowledgement would do so much for our psyche to help healing not only us but the rest of the nation. And then oh boy, I lost my train of thought. Shoot. Um, oh, to Kim's point about the financial degradation of what's happened to us, we spend so much money because we've been trained to physical stuff is our gratification for what's lacking everywhere else. They take everything else from us. So okay, I'll buy this, and my exterior is what will make me feel good on the inside, but it's not. And then I don't do the things that help me build for my family's future and for my own future.
Mhm.
And they've taken, financial training out of the school system, so kids, they don't know anything about balancing a checkbook, much less when I was a kid. In kindergarten, they took us, to the local bank, and ooh, we're over time. I'll make this fast. To the local bank, and we opened a savings account. Do they do that today in school? You know,
I think so.
so parents in groups, social groups, maybe you're gonna have to get a hold of our kids and start doing those things that did work, and retraining, our young people and ourselves, to keep that wealth in the community and make it work. How many times does it recycle through other communities before they release it? We have to pay attention to what works for other people and make it work for us. Because if we ignore it, it'll never get better.
Right.
Um, um, just one point. What I think Kim said, the thing with the UN is putting the entire country on notice that, I mean, the entire world says, okay, you did this, America, the beacon of democracy and all fairness. This is part of your path. You understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And cause a lot of times we want to, or we are very hypocritical when it comes to look what they done, look how bad they did, look at their kangaroo courts. Well, you know what? We got kangaroo courts. We got laws that don't mean anything. You know what I mean? We have oppressed people, whether it be, I read somewhere where as many as 120 million Indians were genocide to conquer this land. 200 million in the entire Americas were genocide. These are crimes, you know,
Yeah,
but
the problem though is, I mean, it's always a good idea to take
mhm,
issues to the
mhm,
United Nations,
yeah.
and they can um, help to expose problems, but in a lot of ways they don't have any real teeth.
Oh, I know.
Um,
I know they don't. I know they don't have teeth. I mean,
yeah, and
I work with those people, but I think my point with that is, yeah, I think things have to be in the civil court as well. Yes, real reparations have to happen. But I think half of the point I'm trying to make is, how about, the beginning of something is to say, I recognize it and I'm sorry. You know what I mean? And then to
right. Well,
follow up with, go ahead.
um, back in the early 80s, I was working with some um, lawyers that did a lot of the celebrated political trials of the era, Lennox Hines, Hope Stevens, and they, National Conference of Black Lawyers, and they brought a case to the United Nations around political prisoners and human rights abuses in the country. And then recently, when I was working with Black Women's Blueprint, um, they took a case, which I helped to write, to the United Nations in Geneva, um, mostly dealing with abuses toward Black women. And it's all good, but to get down to really solving the problem, um, we have to do it within the country.
Mhm,
The United Nations can highlight an issue. It can bring some pressure, but it can't force anybody to do anything without waging war on them. And since the United States runs the Security Council, the only people that are having war, waged on them by the United Nations are doing so with U.S. approval. So that's not going to happen. But Congressman John Conyers has had a bill that he has introduced probably, 40, 50 years now in Congress, H.R. 40, around reparations. And he's not asking for money. He's just asking for a process to start reviewing the history. Um, because as step one, first people have to come to a point where they understand why we deserve the reparations. And he hasn't been able to get that bill off the ground. And so, so we have to be pushing our own Congress people to support that kind of thing. As just one avenue. I mean, I think there are many avenues. I think what we're doing here with the reading group is an avenue to helping to enlighten people. Because as long as people are running from the truth, and as you talked about, Joel, the whitewashing of history, and that's going on at this point all over the country, where history books are literally being rewritten, where books are being banned. People are just not trying to hear the truth, but that's where we have to get. So, Joel, thank you so much. This was a wonderful evening. It's such a difficult chapter, and you handled it like a champ. You really did. I'll admit, I'm surprised. You are a man.
Oh, God. Oh, my goodness. All my education, all my fame, I'm just a stinking man just the same.
No expectations.
All right.
But you really did it. So, who's up next week? Vanita is up next week, I believe. Yeah. So, okay. Good night, everybody. Oh, do we need a lighter note? Are we gonna do?
Do we have another note?
I don't.
See, lighter note.
Well, you said watch a comic. Go watch
Some Bugs Bunny
cartoon.
Go watch some Bugs Bunny cartoons or something. You understand? That's what everybody needs now. You get something this deep and this dark. You want to watch a Bugs Bunny cartoon.
We need something.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, good night, everybody. Have a great week.
Peace.
Thanks. Good night. You
Good
too.
night.
Enjoy.
Right. Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.